What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're taking a look at the Going Gear EDC Club premium subscription for January of 2025. This one did arrive to me a little bit late, hence the late video, so hopefully it'll end up being worth the wait. But for those that aren't familiar with the Going Gear EDC Club, they do offer two tiers to their subscription. The standard is $60 a month, and for that they send you 2 to 5 pieces of EDC gear, or you can opt for the premium, which is $200 a month plus shipping. That one gets you everything from the standard plus at least one additional, what they consider to be premium EDC item. Sometimes it'll be more than one item, but typically it's one item taking the entire value. Now, we're going to jump right into the January 2025 box. As usual, we'll start with the standard. We'll go from lowest value up to the highest before moving on to the premium. So up first in January for our standard box is the Ganzo G769. This is a folding knife with flipper tab deployment. Super smooth deployment on there, great action, great detent on this one. We get green G10 on the scales, or at least the one I have has green G10. I would imagine all of them are gonna have G10, but there may be other colors available. They don't specify in the letter, and sometimes when there's other colors, we'll see a little bit of variety throughout the boxes. With that being said, pretty happy with the green, because I would imagine this knife is also offered in black, and I definitely prefer a little bit of color, just have enough black G10 handle knives. Speaking of the G10, I do like those stylized cutouts. I think it looks pretty great. We also get a D2 steel blade, liner lock on the locking mechanism, and a chunky little knife. It's a decent size. I would imagine probably around 7.5 inches if I had to guess. I'll obviously make sure to specify that in the dedicated video for the Ganzo G769, but doesn't mention it in the letter, and I have not measured it out so far myself. It is much bulkier than the last Ganzo we received, which is probably a good time to mention that this is the second month in a row we're receiving a Ganzo knife from Going Gear. Prior to last month's Ganzo, I had never owned one, so kind of a good introduction to the brand. Fortunately, this one I find to have much better action out of the box than the one I received last month. That was something I was complaining about in last month's video a little bit. Just left a lot to be desired in terms of the action. And from the comments, it seems like I may have just gotten a one-off bad one. A lot of people's were perfectly fine. And so that's obviously great to see. That has improved now with some kind of fidgeting with the pivot a little bit, adding a little bit of oil, and just natural break-in. It's definitely improved, but still not as good as this one is right out of the box. So definitely a little bit of a redemption for Ganzo. Wasn't super impressed, but really impressed with this one so far. Price point on this is $29.99, so they're ultra affordable knives, and it's great to get kind of nice hefty working knife out of these boxes. So pretty happy with our first standard item, and again, value of $29.99 on that one. Now, next up in our standard, only 2 items this month, we get another knife actually. So only knives in the standard box, which is pretty interesting. So we get the Tenable Fenrear. And if the Fenrear name sounds familiar, that's because we've actually received a concept Fenrear from them in the past. And that's not a coincidence. This is actually the same knife, just from their more budget brand. So recently they introduced Tenable, which is a budget brand of concept, similar to the relationship between Sencut and Civivi, or even Civivi and Wii. So a little bit more budget friendly, but same exact knife design as the concept Fenrear. But there were actually quite a few changes. So I have that one just so we can take a look at them side by side. You can see they're offered in a sort of similar aesthetic here with the micarta and titanium, although I believe this is just stainless steel, not a titanium, but same color micarta there. The concept version is a little bit more contoured and rounded, where the Tenable version is completely flat, so they definitely save some money on the finishing. Worth noting, this one's a lot darker, but that's because I oiled this and have carried this, so it has a natural oil from my hands as well. I would imagine that once I oil the Tenable, we're going to end up with a similar result in terms of the coloring on that micarta. Now, also worth noting, if we take a look here in the closed position, our concept version has the front flipper where the Tenable version does not. And to be honest, I'm not really going to miss that. I'm not a huge fan of front flippers, so I'm not going to be missing that too much. Both of them still have that thumb stud for deployment. And then if we keep looking at them, we can flip it over and see that the concept version had a milled titanium pocket clip, where the Tenable version has a folded steel pocket clip. So definitely save some money there as well. Last but not least, we have the same blade shape on there, which is great. One of my favorite things about the Fenrear is that blade shape. But last but not least, you see we have a liner lock, or I guess it's kind of like a bolster lock. It's still liner lock because the micarta is blocking it off, but it's acting as a frame lock here. We had that on the original concept, but now we have a button lock on the Tenable, and pretty well executed overall. One thing I will say, you can use that button lock for deployment as well to flick it out. When you do, very minimal button stick. You may hear a little bit, let's see. pretty much none on that one, but pretty minimal overall. Yeah, pretty much none there again. But when we use that thumb stud, depending on how hard you deploy it, the harder you deploy it, the more likely you are to get some button stick out of here. So I'm going to kick this one out kind of hard here. And when we do, I'll stop talking, push that button, and you'll hear the audible click as that button unsticks itself. So pretty significant button stick there. Now, that's not super uncommon with button locks, and I would imagine over time it's going to wear itself thin and that will reduce. I doubt that it'll ever go away completely. Sometimes it does. Every once in a while you'll be surprised and it does completely go away. But I would imagine we'll always have a little bit of button stick when you give it that harder deployment. Flick it open with a little bit of force. Not the end of the world, but definitely something worth noting. Overall, this is a pretty cool one. It's a Going Gear exclusive, so I would imagine just this configuration of it, I would imagine Tenable is going to release some other versions of the Fenrear under that line and take advantage of this new design with the button lock and without that front flipper. But $68.89 on the price point. So again, only 2 items in our standard. That brings the value up to $98.88. Pretty happy with this overall. We get 2 really cool serviceable knives, and yeah, great value in terms of the 150% of what we paid, which is always kind of my benchmark, that you know you're getting your value's worth. As long as you enjoy the items, you end up coming out ahead, which isn't always the case with these mystery boxes. Obviously, if you don't enjoy even one item, that can tank the value of these boxes. But moving on to our premium, 1 item in the premium this month, so it's going to be 3 items in total, including the standard items, and yet another knife, which is pretty crazy to me. I don't think we've seen a box where it was only knives. We may have gotten 2 or 3 knives in the past, but I don't think we've ever seen one where we've gotten nothing but knives. But this is the Bestech Leo. Obviously, being the premium knife, going to come in at a much higher price point of $189. And $390 on the steel, and this is probably my favorite of the bunch. That's always obviously great to see because this is the one taking up a majority of the value, but I like these kind of smaller size knives. The action on this is also insane, super smooth, and then it just comes flying out of there, super snappy action. As you can see, you got that Skinner blade shape, a little bit less of a drop. You see it does drop when you disengage that lock, but give it a little bit harder shake to get it closed, and that's because one, our frame lock here is pushing up on that once you let go of the lock, and 2, the blade just isn't that heavy for such a small knife. When I do dedicated videos on all of these, I'll give the precise measurements, but for now we have M390 on the blade, we have titanium on our handle with a carbon fiber inlay. Now you can see really nice looking carbon fiber. When I first saw that, I was wondering if it might be the one that has those fibers in there that are UV reactive and it'll glow under UV. I did confirm it does not glow, so if you're curious about that, it does not glow, so no need to test that one there. We also have the wire pocket clip, kind of Spider Coast style pocket clip there. I'm not a huge fan of these. I may end up going to replace that, and for me it's just aesthetic. They work great, so no problem with the overall function of them, but just aesthetically I don't love the look of them, so I may end up swapping that out. But pretty cool knife, and this one is valued at $189. Also worth mentioning, the designer on here is Ostop Hell, and we've seen a few of his designs from different companies throughout the box, and that's definitely not a complaint from me. I really dig his designs. I think he does just kind of good functional knives, and they usually turn out looking great, so pretty happy to see that here. We also have reversible pocket clips on all 3 of these knives, which is worth noting as well. I don't think I mentioned that on the previous 2, but overall a really solid box as long as you don't mind a knife heavy box, which I definitely don't mind it. I do like seeing a little bit of variety. I think with knives I'm more likely to have come across them, where some of the other stuff, it's introducing newer stuff to me, so do like seeing that some of the time, but definitely not going to complain getting 3 really great knives out of here. If you take the value, the $189 from our Bestech Leo, added into the value of the other 2 knives from our standard, which again was $98.88, you get $287.88 for a box that you paid $200 for. So really solid value there. Not quite our 150%, but since I'm happy with all 3 items, can't complain about that. But let me know what you think of these items down in the comments below. Which of these knives was your favorite? Anything else you'd like to chime in? Always appreciate the feedback and chatting with you guys down in the comments. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing this video with anyone you might think will enjoy it, or checking out some of my other videos. All help the channel out a ton, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.